The Moto G82 is one of Motorola's mid-range offerings announced back in May this year, and yes, this review has been a long time coming. But the G82 is finally here, and now that its price has fallen under the €300 mark, it's also a fairly intriguing device. There's also a Chinese variant called Moto G71s, and one could make a case that the G82 is a slightly upgraded version of the Moto G71 5G for the global market. The G71 5G and the G82 are quite similar, but the latter brings a better feature set to the table relative to the price tag even. Also, the G82 is a new tier to Motorola's Moto G lineup this year, as there wasn't a G81 last year. Now that we've established the Moto G82's place in Motorola's portfolio, let's take a closer look at the specs sheet. At first glance, the Moto G82 has an expected hardware for the asking price with a 6.6-inch 120Hz OLED panel, Snapdragon 695 SoC doing the heavy lifting, and 6GB per 128GB memory configuration by default. There's also a microSD card if storage isn't enough. Battery is also in line with the 2022 standards, 5000 mAh supporting 30W of fast wired charging. Interestingly enough, the 50MP main camera has OIS, which is a rare feature in this class. The company likes to include optical stabilization in its budget phones, which is commendable, but we are a bit worried about the sensor size, January 2nd 76-inch. That's a tad smaller than what we would have expected. Still, specs aren't everything, especially when it comes to photography. We've seen a few hidden gems from Motorola in the past, so we might be pleasantly surprised by the G82. The Moto G82 launched a few months back, and its price has gone down since then, putting the handset in a more advantageous position. On paper, the Moto G82 is a solid mid-ranger with a bright and big enough OLED panel, a set of stereo speakers, exceptional battery life, good day-to-day performance, clean Android, and a somewhat comfy design. But is it enough to tackle the plethora of sub-Euro 300 rivals? As it's usually the case with the mid-range market, it's a bloodbath, and it was hard to pick just a few alternatives to the Moto G82. Let's start with the Xiaomi camp. It has the Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G asking about €290, and the Poco X4 Pro in the same price bracket. Essentially, these two phones are almost identical and offer better overall camera performance, brighter displays, and considerably faster charging. The Moto G82 edges out with longer battery life and twice the storage as a standard. Samsung's portfolio has two possible choices, the Galaxy A33 for about €30 less than the Moto G82 and the Galaxy A53 for about €300 if you are lucky enough. Otherwise, it costs at least €320 at some third-party retailers. Arguably, the A53 is the better option, even if that means spending about €40 more. It's a superior phone in almost every aspect except battery endurance. That's where the Moto G82 takes the lead. Realme has a compelling contender for you to consider. The Realme 9 Pro Plus is selling for a little less than €300. Its OLED panel may be just 90 Hz, but it's decently bright and gets the job done. The Dimensity 920 is definitely preferable over the Snapdragon 695 as it's more powerful and supports 4K video recording. Battery life is also solid, charging is blazing fast, and the fingerprint reader is under the display, which is better than the side-mounted one, as versatility isn't its strongest suit. Motorola managed to put together a well-balanced smartphone with capable hardware. The Snapdragon 695 SoC performance seems to be adequate for the price bracket. The 6.6-inch OLED is color accurate and gets very bright, the battery life is outstanding, the clean Android experience is attractive. Still, we can't recommend the Moto G82 without looking into what the competition has to offer. And more often than not, competitors seem to have a better camera performance. The main sensor is probably one of the smallest in the price category, leading to subpar results. We've also seen faster charging and more comfortable, modern under-display fingerprint readers. The side mounted on the Moto G82 is okay, it's just not as desirable as the under-display one. All in all, the Moto G82 definitely deserves a spot on our recommendation list in the sub-Euro 300 category. Camera image quality is below the average for the class. But if cameras aren't much of a priority, the G82 would make a solid daily driver.